media. I can tell you it's kind of turned into most other social media platforms. An ex-girlfriend of mine, as a matter of fact, had to report somebody because they were sending D pics to her in LinkedIn, and that became like a little bit of an issue. That wasn't supposed to be happening there. It was supposed to be about, work connections and that kind of thing. But Reid Hoffman invented LinkedIn. He's been involved in a few other things as well. He's got an impressive recipe. He predicted the rise of social media once upon a time. He's now talking about the future of work in this country. And he is giving a warning to a lot of us, myself included. Get comfortable with the idea that you're not going to be doing things anymore. So we'll tell you what Reid Hoffman had to say. It's not all that optimistic, if I'm honest, but we'll get there coming up 8 a.m. this morning. 7 o'clock hour, I do have another set of those tickets for the Haunted Schoolhouse and Laboratory. We are in that season. I'll have those for you today, 7:45. The number you need, 330-450-7625. The toll-free option at 800-243-7625. Also inside that hour, Airbnbs have started to take over the nation. Some people love them, others not so much. I'd rather stay in the hotel. A lot of Airbnbs have figured out, you know what? Just putting the house up is not going to be enough. I need a hook. I need an angle. I need a theme here, right? We've seen Star Wars, Airbnbs, the Avengers, any type of pop culture. There's a Pulp Fiction Airbnb I have seen. And sure enough, right here in our backyard, Massillon, we now have what they said was going to be a high school football themed Airbnb, but when you start looking at it, no, it's pretty much pro football themed. A little bit of both, I suppose. We'll tell you about the Airbnb Massillon, how much it'll cost to stay in Massillon. Why would you put it there versus anywhere else? We have a lot of conversations to get to, and we'll do that in the 7 o'clock hour. Also, yesterday, this baseball found its way on the front page, at least here locally they did, as what are now being called the Kentucky Reds decided they were going to break up a perfect game by bunting yesterday. This is one of those things that's kind of like an unwritten rule, if you will, in sport. Sacrilegious. That if you should happen to get a hit in a perfect game, it's like, okay, you're playing. But if you try to do this to break up a perfect game for a pitcher, it's like, what are you doing? We don't do that. And I'm always so torn on this. I guess there's different rules if it's just a no-hitter versus a perfect game. And we'll get into what those differences are, why you're allowed to do this in a no-hitter versus a perfect game, whether or not you should do it. And if this were happening between the Dodgers and Cardinals, would our opinion on it be the same? Or is it because it's the Guardians, all of a sudden it's like, hey, I don't know if I'd be liking that stuff. So the Kentucky Reds breaking up a perfect game yesterday, that at Progressive Field. We'll get you into that conversation here as well. Throughout the program, probably talking a little Vince McMahon. I did get my eyes on the first 3 episodes of Mr. McMahon, that new docuseries on Netflix. He, of course, sat for it. So did, honestly, they got plenty of A-listers to sit down and take part of that and give out some pretty strong opinion. Vince, of course, has put out a statement already saying, look, I thought what we were doing was one thing. I sit down, I look at the first cut.
Good morning.
He does not come off looking good anymore. He stumbles more than a few times with answers, and he looks really uncomfortable more than a couple of times.
I need to make 2 different withdrawals.
Okay.
First episode is like you could almost.
And how much?
$625 for the first one.
Second one, they start to get a little deeper. Most of the stuff in the first 3
And
I was aware of.
$200 for the second one.
Maybe had forgotten about was the first WWE female referee. There was a rape accusation there. You end up finding out through the docu-series that some court documents were unsealed, I think, last year, and you found out, he ended up paying off that accuser. Which normally people find you guilty when, in the court of public opinion, you're going to be seen as guilty once you pay off, right? So I watched the first 3 of those. There's, I believe, 6 in total. He does not come off looking great. He steps in it personally more than a couple of times in his answer. But I never once walked away thinking to myself, they're trying to railroad Vince. Doesn't mean they're not, but the tone of it isn't, okay. Yes, he's a scumbag, but you're trying to make this or railroad here or this and that. It does not have that tone at all. The stand.
Series show.
Would you mind speaking in a civilized language?
On Rock 106.9.
9 a.m. Sonic Temple tickets. Get those passed out. Sonic Temple Thursdays here on the Stansbury Show. I'm at their official site here. Look at it. Friday, Metallica, Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, Testament. That's what we know so far. They're doing like an Advent calendar type release type situation. That's Friday. I tell you, my old Gen X ass loves that. Testament, Alice Cooper, Rob Zombie, Metallica, all same night there. Sunday, Metallica, Alice in Chains, Power Trip, Chevelle, who I love, and Arch Enemy. Get some more announcements on that. Have not yet announced the headliners for Thursday and Saturday. I'm a little curious what they think is going on there. Do you think you have something bigger than Metallica and like you're waiting it out? Or is it like there's nothing bigger than Metallica? Just make the announcements and we'll just start to leak the rest of these names out and Metallica's still the biggest thing going. They have to be, right? I don't know what's, I mean,
have a good weekend,
I know people are
Thank you very much.
He's not headlining Sonic Temple, right? And so I'm just kind of curious what that system is. Won't matter to you. You're seeing everybody 9 a.m. I got tickets. We were talking a little bit about that Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix, Mr. McMahon. I started it. I got through 3 episodes yesterday. One of these scandals I didn't know about, there was a couple. One of them that I made it through in the first couple of episodes was this thing called the Ring Boys. You know, that ring gets put together, you know, in every venue. Apparently there was a man who oversaw that operation, location to location. And apparently, more often than not, it would be underage boys that were hired and kind of working on these crews building those rings. And I had never, this had been out there and it had been on the news back in the day, but I was a kid and all I cared about was the junkyard. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know. And so, like, that was one of those scandals I didn't know. And apparently 3 different people were released from the corporation over this. There were some pretty serious allegations. And at the time, people in the organization said, yeah, only 2 of those people were guilty. One of those people was sacrificed because he happened to be gay. If memory serves, I'm sorry, I forgot my notes at home. But if memory serves, his name is James Patterson. And he was kind of caught up in this Ring Boys controversy inside what was then the WWE, right? And he had been let go through this. And inside the organization, it was kind of understood. It was like, nah, man, he was kind of singled out because in a very homophobic industry, then they claimed, I don't know, you know what I mean, but I can see it. I paused there because it's like, we look at how everybody was dressed pretty sure, but okay, fair enough, right? And they believe was sacrificed because of that, right? It was like, oh, well, of course, he was gay. He was clearly a part of this. Now, there was a time where this country had a hard time separating the fact that somebody could be attracted to a man and that not mean that you were attracted to a young boy. I lived through this. We've seen this, right? Like, we know that was a thing once upon a time. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, well, that's not the craziest suggestion ever, that maybe he was just kind of lumped in unfairly because, well, we know, deviant, right? Deviant, so you're up. And so I was like, okay, well, that part's not nuts. And so, again, talking Mr. McMahon, new docuseries on Netflix, they talked to more than a few wrestlers. And, you know, Bret the Hitman Hart says, oh, yeah, the guy who was running that Ring Boys operation, that guy's a pedophile. Like, it was one of those things, it's like, nobody could ever really prove anything, but it was kind of like, did we kind of know? And I was like, jeez, man, that's pretty open and, like, you know, flat out to be saying this. So, one of the guys gets released. James Patterson, I believe is his name. And then they bring him back to the organization after the story had kind of died off a little. That happens a lot, right? That's not a new thing. Wasn't a new thing then. It had been happening a lot. And their issue is like, no, man, this guy was kind of sacrificed unfairly in this. And so he came back, and most people were on the organization have nothing but, you know, great things to say and all of this. I mention it because they're trying in the docuseries to at least portray to you that they're showing you both sides of something. So they talked to a wrestler about it, I forget his real birth name as well, but he is known as Tony Atlas as a wrestler. I'm sure wrestling fans, you know who I'm talking about. And they talked to Tony Atlas about it. And I can't say verbatim what he said, but he said that guy would walk around the locker rooms and the dressing rooms and the like, and would grab you by, we'll use the word penis here. He used a different P word for it, and his accent made it sound really, really funny. And I couldn't stop. I mean, I'm 10 years old, so there was a little bit of me that he had gray hair, and the way he was saying it came off as funny. But then I stopped. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is a pretty serious allegation here. And right, so I went back and I started really watching. I was like, all right, so the guy was tossed out due to this, pedophilia scandal that was running wild through the WWF on ring boys, building the rings in this whole thing, right? 3 people let go. 1 guy now back into the organization. Tony Atlas now saying, no, that guy was up to stuff. And he claims he was grabbing him by the penis. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the locker room. I have no idea what type of character Tony Atlas is carrying throughout his life. I don't know. I will tell you, I didn't buy it. When I watched Tony Atlas, I thought to myself, that's old man homophobia. That's like, oh, grandma, you're not allowed to say colored anymore. There was it was a little bit like that, where that Tony Atlas thing, I was like, nah, man, I kind of feel like this is old world mentality, and you just didn't like the fact that they brought him back into the organization. I could be wrong, but I kind of felt like Tony Atlas, a little bit of a homophobe.
The Stansberry Show
And look what you've become, a schmuck.
on Rock 106.9.
To send a text to your studio. Microphone talkback button at your disposal on iHeartRadio. And on your socials, The Stansberry Show. We had been talking a little Vince McMahon, Mr. McMahon. That docuseries came out on Netflix yesterday. I made it through the first 3 episodes, 3 more to go. I'll have to thank my wrestling faithful for correcting me here. We were telling you about a controversy that had rocked the WWE, well then, over child molestation. There was the Ring Boys, as it was known, where it was the crew who would put the ring up, which, the fact that leave touching kids out of it. Hey, we're going to hire 16-year-olds for this. Y'all good? It's wait, what? No, I don't know if that's all right. You know what I mean? That part's kind of strange. But so, a lot of those crews were young men. And 3 people ended up being released from the company. And I'll thank my wrestling listeners here for correcting me. I thought the man's name was James Patterson. James Patterson. I have left my notes at home. I apologize. It was Pat Patterson is this man's name. But when it happened, when 3 men had to be released from the organization after some examination into this, people in the organization, including Vince, had said, well, one of those people wasn't guilty. And everybody kind of felt he was railroaded because, the world's worst kept secret then is that he was gay, right? And so people kind of felt like, oh, he's being railroaded because of this. And we brought up Tony Atlas. And you'll have to forgive me, I don't know his, God-given name there, but that's how he's known in the wrestling world, Tony Atlas. And he said, oh, no, Pat was a strange dude, and he had made the accusation that he had grabbed him by the penis. And look, I wasn't there, you know what I mean? I gotta be honest with you, when I saw it, I was like, I don't know if I buy it. It felt like a little old man homophobia to me. I don't know if a gay man should have been running around the dressing rooms with us back then. Right? It felt like, I don't know. It felt that way to me. See, you guys, you know a lot about your stuff. Tony Atlas is a little bit of a weird dude, Stansberry. He has a shoe fetish, and he claims it's non-sexual. All right, I'll tell you what's weird about that. I don't know if you could call what I have a shoe fetish. I am aware when a woman is wearing nice shoes. And I like it. I don't want to lick her feet. I'm not even really crazy about feet. I'll rub your feet while we're sitting on the couch watching Love is Blind or something, right? Welcome to being in a relationship with you. I don't love or hate feet. It's not like, you know what I mean? If your feet stink, I don't like that, right? But if a woman's wearing a very nice, like a really nice pair of shoes, I'm aware of it. And much like I've heard women say about a man wearing nice shoes and a nice watch, everybody has to wear shoes. What you decide to buy with this and how much money you decide to spend on this kind of tells people kind of who you are, maybe a little bit. They at least think it does, that it does say something. I don't know what it is, because, you know, like the stereotype of women is that they're all obsessed with the shoes, right? But I am aware of when I wear, and I find nice shoes to be an attractive thing. I kind of like the captain of industry, boss lady, get her out of the boardroom and see what happens thing. You know what I mean? We all got things. That's kind of my thing. So I guess my shoe interest, I won't call it a fetish, but my shoe interest, if you will, is ultimately leads to a sexual avenue. You know? But I'm seeing videos and photos here of him licking the soles and, you know, people stepping on his face. But the problem is a lot of this stuff is happening in the ring or on the television shows of it, right? Like how much, like, is that really, like, that's what I never know. How much of this is the kayfabe? I shouldn't have done it, but here we go. Apparently, this is I learned this in this docuseries. It's a carnival term where everybody's kind of aware that this is a production. We're all in on the joke, and nobody should ever break the fourth wall. There was a little bit of a controversy and something that happened. That's more wrestling fan related, but it got into Vince and how he runs the operation and where he'll let certain things happen and where he won't. That Ring Boys operation thing was sketchy as hell. And it felt like, oh, there was clearly something wrong going on in this. The Pat Patterson, I really can't make an assessment overall on whether or not I believe he was involved. But when I heard that Tony Atlas story, I was like, this feels almost personal on some level. And it feels like just, I'm uncomfortable being around gay men. That's the read I got off. That's the read I got. They talked about the Montreal screw job a little bit, for those of you who are into wrestling, when they kind of screwed over Bret Hart as he was going over to Nitro. This is another area where Vince didn't necessarily come off looking great. Hearing Vince's side of that, of like why he was like, no, dude, it's our belt, we're doing this. I was like, all right, I think I can kind of see it. Like, I can kind of see it. Where Vince was really in the wrong there was when he started talking about how Ted Turner in his shady business practices, which was just showing up and offering the wrestlers more money, which is what he did early on when he started to take the business over his dad. It was all like these hillbilly territories, right? And, you know, just a bunch of dumb hillbillies wearing overalls and like, Friday night comes in, right at the armory. And Vince kind of did. He kind of took it, worked his magic with it. And I've said, look, you cannot minimize his impact on presentation at all. Like, he has clearly been in his organization, and probably people who worked for him, yes. But that whole thing, wrestling, has been, visionary in how they present. They hold the bit better than anybody, maybe. And presentation-wise, camera angles, what you see, the writing, the scripting of it, you got to take your hat off to it. It's an impressive thing. When that many people know, it's like predetermined, and again, that's just it, predetermined, not fake. Because they got into that. You know, Hulk was like, dude, I had like 139 surgeries in 2 years. So, like, if that's fake, somebody forgot to tell me. And I maintain that they are kind of right about it. I understand, while only seeing 3 episodes of it, why Vince is uncomfortable. Because he looked uncomfortable while answering the questions. He did. He did not do a good job answering those questions. When you hear the wrestlers kind of talk about how, and he's the ultimate donkey. And this is what I mean. Like, Vince's whole thing is, it was good for the business, so I did it. And, like, that's the most 1980s mentality I've ever seen. Social media's kind of changed the game. You're supposed to do what's really good for business as long as it's not terrible for the people who are doing your business. That's kind of the way it's supposed to be now, right? Because the conversations have shifted. Mentalities have shifted in the life. he's still kind of operating under the, and what I'm saying is, that's fine, but don't expect to win the court of public opinion battle. Like, don't expect to win that if that's how you're going to still dig your heels in on it. Like, well, it was what's best for the WWE, so that's what I did. It's like, yeah, man, like, you're not wrong. And that's how you became everything this is. But that's not how you're going to win the public opinion battle. You're just not going to win it that way.
The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
9 a.m. this morning, Sonic Temple Thursdays get you into that show. Metallica headlining 2 nights, both Friday and Sunday. Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, Testament part of Friday. You know, Alice in Chains is part of Sunday. They haven't announced their headliners for Thursday or Saturday. Somebody asked me this morning, you have any guesses? It's like, well, I'll take a lazy guess and say Foo Fighters, maybe. And I mean, I'm reaching at that as just by like who fits the bill to do it. And they come to mind. I know people are mad at Dave Grohl right now for sleeping around on his wife a little bit. It's not a good activity, don't get me wrong, but like, geez, man, we got the Diddy stuff, we got the Vince McMahon stuff, and like, we're really gonna be worried about Dave Grohl. Like, I'm not sure that's where our focus should be. But I think maybe that's possible. Like, hey, let's get as far away from that situation as we can, make the announcement. Here comes the Foo Fighters. They feel big enough. I don't know. It remains to be seen. What I do know is you're getting Metallica Friday and Sunday. I have tickets 9 a.m. this morning. You'll have tickets. All right, so there has been a little bit of a battle brewing between the Cincinnati, Kentucky Reds, if you will, and the Cleveland Guardians. Welcome to, big little brother there, right? Battle of Ohio. So they have been embattled in a series, and Tuesday night, the Guardians actually clinched a first-round bye for the playoffs by taking care of the Reds. So there was a Photoshop photo that went around, and I'm surprised this many people took the bait here, but they kind of did. The Guardians repurposed a photo of when they had won a series and had photoshopped the shirts. And instead of like, the champs or whatever, it was Cincinnati is in Kentucky. And they were kind of trolling. And everybody lost their minds. Reds fans, disrespectful. Oh, act like you've been there. All of that. And even Guardians fans were like, oh my God, disgusting. You haven't even won anything yet. Oh my God, can we act? And it's like, they were just screwing around. And I think they've earned the screwing around, if I'm honest. They were left for dead. When I bet them to win the Central, were better. they were better. Oh my God, Stephen Vought's never been a manager. Oh my God, it's gonna be the worst thing you've ever seen. And again, I'll hammer this point until they put me in the ground. To run the country, outsider, shake it up. Never been there before, never done it, no experience, good. With the fate of the country. The fate of a baseball team? 100 years experience or you're not allowed. Bonkers, right? That's a little crazy. I feel like they've earned the screw around a little. They've earned it. So now you fast forward. Last night. And the Reds feel as if they're in a position now for a little bit of revenge. At least that's the way this is coming off now this morning. There was a bunt attempt last night, after 6 innings, to break up a perfect game. It's one of those unwritten rules of baseball. You don't kind of talk about it, everybody kind of separates, everybody just...
God damn it.
And apparently one of the unwritten rules of baseball, and every sport has them. Plenty of stand-up comedians have made this point. If they're that important, then write them down! Right? But like, there are unwritten rules of sports.
Yep.
And in baseball, one of them is you don't bunt to break up a perfect game. You don't do it. Little sissified. As a matter of fact, the Guardian social media team posted the video of it yesterday and said, bunting to break up a perfect game is Kentucky Reds behavior. Now that joke works no matter where you are, right? It works no matter what team you're working about. The same way, only in Tampa, when you see a car broken down on the side of the road and the photo could have literally been from anywhere, including Tampa. Only in Canton, and it's like, no, only in America, only with, and really those memes are always, only with human beings, right? Like that's kind of the reality of those. It's kind of one of that. The joke works no matter who you're talking about. But apparently they were a little upset about those shows. At least that's the theory. So you bunt now to break up this perfect game. Taboo. Now, I've told you before, I am a football fan much more so than I am a sports fan overall. I love sports. And I watch a lot of baseball. I watch a lot less of it than I watch. If we were talking Dodgers and Cardinals and not Guardians versus whoever, I'm telling you, it's a 2-0 game. There's plenty of baseball left. We're professionals. I'm supposed to win it. I'm not supposed to use every club in my bag to try to get the victory because there's this thing that's happening in front of us. It's your job to execute and to fulfill that end of that perfect game. It's my. We were talking Dodgers and Cardinals. That's what our opinion is. I think baseball purists, and I don't know how many of those are out there anymore. Really, I think there's still some. I think they're saying you can't do that on the old baseball diamond and like those guys. Peanut shells on the floor, man. 7-3, and that's the top of the seventh. And you take me out to the ball game, guys. They're probably going to tell you don't do that. But I got to tell you, it's a little participation trophy-ish, right? Well, you got the perfect game, and it's because I wasn't willing to do this because people were going to call me a pussy if I did. It's a little participation trophy-ish now. I mean, a smidge. Kind of. It's a 2-0 game. I expect them to try to win it. Apparently, you're not supposed to do that. Here's what the manager says, Stephen Vogt. It's a 2-0 game. Yeah, there's a perfect game on the line, but they're trying to win a game. It's a tough left-on-left matchup. It's a good baseball play. You can't knock him for trying to get something going. Like I said, left-handed hitter trying to face Tim Herron. He's got to try to find a way to get on base. Yeah, let me ask you this. The guards are facing a potential perfect game. And Quan gets up there and bunts and gets on base. Are we throwing tomatoes at Stephen Quan today going, how dare you break up this great moment in baseball because you were trying to win a game? No. I think Guardians fans are like, yeah, that's kind of awesome. I mean, you're not supposed to do it, but it was us that did it, so I think, you know what, we're going to kind of let it get away. Yeah, you know what, you're allowed to do that now. It's kind of one of those things. It happened against us, so it's like the most egregious thing in the world. But honestly, the fact that it's baseball, if it happened to a team that you didn't root for, you probably wouldn't have even heard it happen.
The Stansberry Show.
I just wish I hadn't drunk all that cough syrup.
On Rock 106.9.
We were talking a little Guards-Reds. There was a perfect game in play last evening. And a bunt took place by the Reds there. Those Kentucky Reds. And they put a bunt in play and broke up a perfect game. People have thoughts on it, It's an unwritten rule in baseball. You don't pull a move like this to break up a perfect game. And we talked about the low-hanging fruit joke of, well, if it's that important, then write the rule down. The way it was explained to me, and I'm sorry I was unable to get this call on the air for you, but I took a call and the guy said to me, the way it was explained to me is, he's like, it's a gentleman. It's like when you hear Stansberry people say, you were raised better than that. It's kind of one of those, it's like, he was raised better, to know not to do. What I'll say is it's a competition. And you have to expect a team, especially in a 2-0 game. I mean, you can come back from that deficit. It's not like it was insurmountable. You have to expect that they're going to do that. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Right? Now, Mark reached out to me. He found me on my socials, the Stansberry Show. He is on Instagram. says the best way I can explain a perfect game to you, Stansberry, is a perfect game in baseball is like the great white buffalo. They're rare. So do you shoot the great white buffalo just because you can? Okay, I understand it. That feels like reaching to the far end of the earth to be like, dude, look, you can't do that. So I'll make the same reach if you'll allow. I care more about a rare animal being alive than I do about a sporting event that takes place 162 times a year. Baseball games are not rare. That activity in them, rare. I would grant you that. Good for baseball when they happen. Well, yes, look what's happening right now. People are talking baseball. Now, look, we're talking about it whether it happened or not. We're talking about it because it didn't happen. In most Major League Baseball markets, is the Guardians reaching a perfect game last night that big? They're clearly going to talk about it in baseball, where baseball's like the sport in town. They're clearly going to talk about it. Is it still going to be what it was once upon a time? I don't feel that. But I could be dead wrong. I could be dead wrong. It's just my opinion. It's just how I feel about something. It doesn't make it factual. You know, I think actually, I took this message from Greg, and I think Greg kind of nailed it. He said, Stansberry, if we're talking about a starting pitcher working his way through the entire game, and he's working on a perfect game, you don't do this to the pitcher. But we're talking about into this. Again, as a casual baseball fan, because I know what some baseball purists are thinking, this idiot never talks about our sport. We finally get something, and of course, he butchers it like a moron. Stupid media, just doing stuff just to make people mad. And look, it worked. It made me mad. Right? Like, no. If you tell me the starting pitcher is going through this, and this is kind of the unwritten rule, you don't do it, I think that's a better argument. This is flimsy as hell, but this is my opinion. It's flimsy, but I'll say you don't do that to a man. Doing it to a team is different. If you, the starting pitcher, go from the first inning to the end of the game and pitch a perfect game, you're an all-timer. Forever. You're solidified for the rest of your life. Now, like every other famous person, like every other athlete, 5 years after you retire, nobody gives a good goddamn about you. Right? Nobody cares. The next kid's throwing 120 in the bullpen right now. Nobody gives a damn. Man, remember Nolan Ryan? Yeah, who cares? Right? Like this, we got this kid now. Welcome to it, right? That's the way that's going to go. But you are then kind of put in baseball's like rare air, and you're probably a Hall of Famer. If you were marginal, on the line Hall of Famer, and then find yourself with a perfect game, that's going to put you over and you're going in, right? I would imagine. The point being is, if you achieve a perfect game with half the damn roster out there pitching, you don't put, the entire roster doesn't get solidified. Here's another argument. If the opposition's not trying to win, did you achieve a perfect game? Like this. Did your kid beat you in the driveway playing hoops? Or did he beat you because your wife's going to kick your ass if you just start stuffing the ball on him and he goes back in the house for dinner with a bloody nose because you decided you wanted to be, Andre Iguodala out there and play defense? Did your kid beat you? Probably not. As a competitor, do you want to know you did it? I would. I'd want to know I did it. Especially these days. Because everybody has their voice. Guys who can't throw the ball 42 miles per hour are going to talk right the rest of your life. Are going to talk trash. You can't knock down empty Coke bottles at the county fair to win your wife a goddamn teddy bear, but like somehow this dude's a loser, right? Like, so and so the rest of your life, I'd want to know I did. And my overall point, I think, stands. If this was Yanks, Twins, or whatever, you'd be like, a little bit of an opinion, but you play to win the game, right? That would be the opinion. But it's against the Guardians, and so it's egregious. We can't do that. I think Greg has the best overall point. Once you're using more than one pitcher, I'm not sure the perfect game. If I'm there, it's like, dude, I saw that. It was kind of impressive. Yeah, all right, fair enough. If a single athlete reaches that feat. Now, yes, you need catches in the outfield, you need this, right. But if they come together to get that done for the starting pitcher, that to me is a wildly different scenario than what was going on last night.
The Stansberry Show.
I've heard many a loon, and if there ever was a loon, that is a loon.
On Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show. Been talking about the breakup of the perfect game last night. Reds bunted to break up a perfect game. Fans have opinions on it, and that's what makes sports great. I mean, right? This is exactly what makes sports great. Here we are in the middle of a, not necessarily argument, a little bit of a debate, right, amongst opinions about this, and it's not whether or not people, get food or, whether or not they get to, sleep inside or anything, so it's like, it's kind of fun, right? Everybody can have their opinion. Now, perfect games are rare. They're rare. So much so that a man who coaches, not professional baseball, but, competitive, says, as a coach that coaches competitive baseball, Stansberry, I would never instruct a batter to lay down a bunt against a pitcher who was throwing a perfect game, even if that happened to be in a championship situation. Now, I had texted that person back. He texted in 330-450-7625. I guess it could be her. I don't know. And, I said, even if it was multiple pitchers last night, because he used, again, I don't want to overanalyze. People are just kind of talking, but he used the singular version of a pitcher, not pitchers. I would never against a pitcher is what that text has said, right? He also was nice enough to send this in. This is just how rare perfect games are. According to this information he sent me here that he has searched on Google, one perfect game was thrown in Major League Baseball in 2023. I'm going to butcher this last name, but Domingo Germán of the New York Yankees. It took place against the Athletics. I remember this, again, because they're perfect games. I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that, right? June 28th, last year. This is how rare they are. That was the 24th perfect game in Major League Baseball history. This is also in that search result, and I thought that this was interesting. That search result continues. A perfect game occurs when a pitcher or pitchers complete at least 9 innings without allowing any opposing batter to reach base. This means no hits, walks, fielding errors, or hit by a pitch. Now, this is why you have to read things thoroughly. When I read it the first time, I didn't see or pitchers. I just saw when a pitcher, and I was like, well, they're telling you. But no, they're not. Technically, by this definition, what was happening last night is a perfect game. I don't get to decide this. All I can tell you is what my opinion of it is. I view it as something. This is not offensive, but it's probably disrespectful. I view it as something less than. If it's not a pitcher going the entire game and getting his perfect game. I'm allowed to have it. That's what I think. This is why I don't get to vote on who goes into the Baseball Hall of Fame, right? Because I got opinions like that one. As a guy who just casually watches games occasionally, mostly pays attention to the franchise local to me, really get invested come playoff time and things like that, a casual sports fan, as I am known to be. Baseball, this is a long season. It's almost hard to be a dedicated fan. I view it as different. I don't get to make that distinction, but I do get to make it for me when I'm watching it. And that's how I walk away from it. Todd said this. What if in the guy who bunted, in his contract is the guy needs one more on base in that situation later today in Friday? Right? Like, I don't know, man. It's rings if you do this, or the agony of defeat, but you were there. Now, I have heard this from competitors, that when something is that rare, to be on the field for it is like, no, man, like, I was there. And I don't care about fans. I don't care about this. I know I was there. I watched something that most people will never achieve in their lives. I was there. I saw it up close. I can understand that. I remember when one of these happened. I was only 5 years old. Not even, as a matter of fact, because I believe, if memory serves, and not memory, I looked it up. May 15th, 1981. So I'm not even 5. I'm about a week and a half away from being 5. And the noise that went through my house, a kid, right? And was going bonkers crazy. Honestly, every time the family gets together, if there's too many drinks, too many of this, they go. That story. It made him that much more of a fan the rest of his life. Fandom, flipping the cup over. We got to get rid of the Charles Schwab guy and get the, Barstool fans in on our sport. Like, you're suffering that kind of angle, much like golf is. You can make the argument that robbing television of an all-time moment is probably not the best for future fan involvement. I'm not sure that means you shouldn't do it, but it probably does not help you with that. Do have tickets for the Haunted Schoolhouse and Laboratory. We'll send caller 15 now. That at 330-450-7625. The toll-free option, 800-243-7625. Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, says, yeah, the future of work, it ain't great. We'll get to it next on Rock 106.9.
The Stansberry Show
It's a medicinal fact that rum gets a man's heart started in the morning.
on Rock 106.9.
Savannah Corbett won her way into the Haunted Schoolhouse and Laboratory. I have another set of those tickets for you tomorrow on the program, and later today, under an hour. Sonic Temple Thursdays, your shot to see Metallica, Rob Zombie, Allison Chevelle, I Prevail. A lot of people, man. And still a lot to be named. They're doing like an advent calendar type release at SonicTempleFestival.com on the bands. We don't know who the headliners for Thursday or Saturday are yet. Dare I say Foo Fighters? Kind of feels about right. Yeah. The Knot, maybe? Could see that. We'll get you in. Either way, that at 9 a.m. Metallica playing not one but two nights for that. And at 9 a.m. you get tickets. Reid Hoffman is a name you may not know, but LinkedIn is probably a social service you have at least heard of. Whether or not you're using it or not, different story. LinkedIn, a little bit more of the professional social medias, at least it's supposed to be. The ex and I had to actually report an account to LinkedIn because some man would not stop sending D pics to her and that was embarrassing for him, ultimately, at the end of the day. But so what I'm saying is you can try to make a social media platform, whatever it is you're trying to make it, but once you let people on it, it's going to turn into what people want it to be. Kind of how that goes. I mention it because Reid Hoffman, once upon a time, had predicted the rise of social media overall. Most of your 9-to-5s are going away within the next 10 years. No, these are for sure. Just start waving, they're gone. But I'm not so sure he's right. Now, most people tell you, okay, Reid Hoffman or Stansberry, where are you putting your eggs? Which basket are you putting? Right? Fair enough. He says travel agents. It's over. He says, when was the last time you booked with a travel agency? Put a pin in that question because I'm going to circle right back to it here in a minute. The business, it's already dead. It's all the previous generation, he says. Instead of the travel agent, many people would prefer to do that and research that kind of stuff themselves, investing more of their money on the vacation. As time becomes scarce for many workers, financial struggles become more prevalent, and vacations grow into an even more of a luxury for the average person, and it's not surprising that people aren't willing or can't afford to use a travel agent at all. Okay, now what do we always say? That experiences will shape opinions. And I had a horrific experience with one of the online booking apps. They still owe me over $1,000. I will never, ever, 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 ever see that $1,000. This service inventing. So I'm not so sure dead wrong. That would freak me out. I was thinking about that with flying the other day. I'm going off in left field a little bit, but hear me out. Like, people think about winning the lottery all the time and like, I want to fly private. I do not want to be the only person on a plane. If I flew private, I would have to take like 15 other people with me. 10, some. I want numbers. Because if I'm in the air alone on that plane, it's like, oh, dude, this thing's going down. Like, I am not important enough to keep this thing in the air. Like, somebody somewhere screwed up. It's just Stansbury, put him on the ground and I'll go home, he'll be dead, nobody give a damn, right? And it's like, that's how my brain works. Otherwise known as being psychotic, right? So, like, that's good, but that is what goes through my mind now. Other people on the flight, even though it annoys me, it's like, all right, well, God's not going to kill all these people, just screw me, right? So, like, I feel I'm at ease there. I don't like the idea of it. It makes me uneasy. But, I remember my grandparents laughing at the name Google and YouTube and, the internet and, Yahoo! And, like, everybody freaking out and losing their mind. And I kind of feel like that's who I am right now with the driverless car thing. They say it's coming. You're going to want to get places less expensive. You don't want to drive. You don't want to pay your insurance. You don't want to pay your car payment. So driverless vehicles and moving you back and forth, they say it's coming. They say that, by the way, not they, Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. He says that's going to affect another industry, and one that plenty of people have told me it would never affect the AI technology. He says, no, they're wrong. And we'll get to that. And a few other careers he says are over next on The Stansbury Show.
The Stansbury Show.
Yeah, but listen, for every 100 angry calls we get, there is somebody that I help.
On Rock 106.9.
9 a.m. this morning, let's get you into Sonic Temple, see Metallica. Sonic Temple Thursdays on The Stansbury Show. Do that again next Thursday, too. Yeah, I'll pull out some Metallica stuff and play it for you. Oh, yeah, I know which one I want to pull out today. 9 a.m., I'll get you those tickets. We've been talking about Reid Hoffman a little. Reid was the inventor of LinkedIn. He's now creating a handful of industries we'll be gone within a decade due to AI technology. Now, people will listen when Reid speaks. He had predicted. Jeez, dude, maybe cry about that a little less. So apparently people are going to prefer that at some point. And then one of my own experiences kind of had me in that position. We also talked about cab drivers. They say it's over. Like Uber and all of that, it's all going to be... Dude, this is like well on its way. San Francisco, I think over 100 in rotation right now. Yeah, I've seen some of that. I don't love it. I wrote back to Mitch and I said, look, man, I got to tell you, I don't love it. I don't even really have a good reason. I'm just old and cranky. And there's a little truth in that. I don't love the feeling of it. Again, it's just, to me, and I'm probably overreacting here, it feels like more humanity taken away. Can I go tinfoil conspiracy weirdo hat for you real quick? So, like, the next thing on this list is truck drivers. And they say, yeah. And, like, there's like 6 of these already.